Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Doctor Who. Is that a monster? No. No, don't be silly. There's never any such thing as monsters. They're just creatures you haven't met yet. Welcome, Whovians, to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Doctor Who. Special thanks, as always, to our friends at Disney Plus Canada for letting us watch this series early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, video games, and all things Geekcentric. Joining me for this Who-filled review is my companion, or am I his? He's the Dalek-loving doctor who dabbles in some transcendent dimensional debauchery. He's Darcy, the Handles-loving Whovian Hudson.
So many little references there for a non-Whovian.
Right? Did I get
I
some?
like it. Handles is like deep cut for anyone who knows Doctor Who and knows that little head that the 11th Doctor dragged around forever. So
Okay. I was
yeah,
trying to.
awesome.
I've got a few that I've picked out. I've done a little bit of research, and actually, why don't we start there? Like, this is my first ever experience with Doctor Who. Darcy, for those listening, you're a diehard Whovian. What's your journey been like with the Good Doctor?
Well, it's funny. My journey started off as just knowing about Doctor Who and the fandom and the universe, because again, with the New Who revival in 2005, it was always talked about by fans who love those deep sci-fi cuts, like your Battlestar Galacticas, your Doctor Who is right up there with that style of stuff. But I never tuned in, and I kind of always made fun of it up until the point where I went to college and met one of my good friends, and he's like, "Dude, just sit down and give it a shot. It's right up your alley." And after making fun of him for long enough, I spent a weekend getting caught up, basically watching 8 seasons over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and was instantly in love with it. It's such a unique universe. It's so much fun while dealing with some really heavy sci-fi stories. It's just the perfect marriage of camp and just sci-fi, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Again, as I mentioned, like this is literally the first time I've seen clips of Doctor Who. I knew what a Dalek was. I
Hmm.
don't. Hopefully, I'm saying that
Dalek,
correctly.
yeah, yeah.
Dalek. But we will get into things. But before our sonic screwdrivers become useless due to the presence of microscopic Vashta Narada, let me
Oh,
get to the
geez.
synopsis for this series. The Doctor and his companion Ruby travel across time and space with adventures all the way from the Regency era in England to war-torn future worlds. Throughout their adventures in the TARDIS, a time-traveling spaceship shaped like a police box, they encounter incredible friends and dangerous foes, including a terrifying bogeyman and the Doctor's most powerful enemy yet. The series is written by executive producer and showrunner Russell T Davies and stars Chudi Gatwa, Millie Gibson, alongside a guest cast including Aneurin Bernard, Anita Dobson, Yasmin Finney, Michelle Greenidge, Jonathan Groff, Gwion Morris Jones, Bonnie Langford, Genesis Linnae, Gemma Redgrave, Lenny Rush, Indira Varma, Angela Winter, and Jinx Monsoon. The 14th season, I guess it's the 14th season of Doctor Who. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it's also being billed as season 1, so it's kind of like a
Right.
reboot for it's like a second New Who reboot almost, where it is
Okay.
still canon, but also acting as a good jumping on point, I guess.
Well, let's just say this season of Doctor Who premieres on May 10th on Disney Plus, with new episodes releasing weekly. And we should note that we've gotten to see, technically, I mean, I was pitched that it was the first 3 episodes, but technically, Darcy, you were saying the first episode we watched was already released. It was the
Yes,
Christmas
the first
special.
episode of the season is technically The Church on Ruby Road, which is the Christmas special that released last year.
Okay.
So it is already out, but we also got that part of our package because it is considered the first adventure with this doctor and his companion.
Makes sense. And it kind of sets up Ruby's sort of origin, I guess, right?
Hmm.
So I guess technically we've seen the first 2 episodes. But again, this is completely spoiler free. We're going to be sharing our thoughts, but we're not going to be giving anything away that would spoil anything to do with the storylines necessarily. But we will be talking about like performances and just sort of what worked for us. And for me, I think it'll be kind of an interesting conversation, Darcy, because of our the contrast in
Hmm.
our fandomness for Doctor Who. So I was actually kind of hoping we could start off by talking about, I think, the 2 most important characters on the show, and that's Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor and his new companion Ruby Sunday, played by the ever so charming Millie Gibson. Starting with Ncuti Gatwa, just he is oozing charm. He's
So
so
much.
confident. I'm enjoying how like mischievous he is. He's curious about everything, and he seems to have sort of this like vivacious love for learning, and even sharing sort of his past experiences with Ruby. Darcy, for yourself, how does he stack up against previous doctors?
Well, again, he's kind of just taking all the best parts of the Doctors that came before him, basically at least from the New Who era, where he's got that quirkiness of the 11th Doctor. He has the over the top exaggeration from the 10th Doctor. He's kind of has those moody moments like the 12th Doctor. He really is just turning it up to 11 when it comes to performing, and he really is bringing this character to life in such a fresh way. Again, having with the 12th Doctor being a grumpy old man before we got Jodie Whittaker stepping in as the 13th Doctor, he is really a breath of fresh air when we're going back, and he's having fun with being the Doctor, which it's been a while since we've had that, like, again, that level of fun and, like I said, mischievousness to him, where he likes to tease and poke fun at things and just kind of lord the fact that he knows everything, but also doesn't know everything and wants to learn about it. It's just, he's doing a great job of being the Doctor.
Yeah, there's such a playful energy with him, especially in Chudi's body language, the way he moves. I mean, I found that he's not so much like even in moments that are like would be terrifying to you and me. It's like he's not so much running as he is like skipping from
Hmm.
place
Hmm.
to place, which is just kind of I don't know. I thought that was pretty fun.
It's, again, running is integral to being the Doctor. If you have to be ready for some good cardio, because a lot of what the Doctor does is run, because he doesn't like fighting per se. He will
Yeah.
solve the problem, and like you said, there is no such thing as a monster. He wants to befriend everything and understand everything in the universe. And when he
Hmm.
comes across something he doesn't know, he gets excited because that means it's something that's an opportunity to learn, which is what he's always looking for. But I think one of my favorite things about this Doctor is, again, we got that in the Church on Ruby Road, and even a bit in the Giggle, where we were introduced to the 15th Doctor. His compassion.
Hmm.
He Like, doctors are always there and they always do care, but they kind of separate themselves and keep them distant and put up walls to be the alien on the outside. Whereas Chudi's Doctor seems to be getting right down and into it, and bearing his heart on his sleeve from the get go, which again is another refreshing take for the Doctor, for someone to be so open and openly compassionate and willing to share why he's hurting, type thing. He's so good.
Yeah, there's a moment where and this is in the Christmas special that's been out, but he speaks to I guess it's like a cop or something, and they share a really lovely moment that I won't
Hmm.
necessarily spoil, but yeah, I sort of got that right off the jump, and I think the interesting thing for me is that this is the only Doctor that I've really experienced, so I
Hmm.
don't really know what the major differences are, and so I'm intrigued I'm interested when we talk about maybe kind of the vibe of these episodes, kind of what your thoughts are. But before we do, you can tell that Trudy is having so much fun because of the like insane amount of chemistry that he has with Millie as Ruby Sunday. She is excellent. Like there's a youthful energy to her. A lot of times in the entertainment industry, you get people that are playing that are characters that are 18 or 19, but they're played by like mid 20s, maybe even late 20s at times. But like Millie is 19 and Ruby Sunday is 19,
Hmm.
and you can tell that, but in like the best way possible. Like this isn't like me as a somewhat mid 30s gentleman, sort of being like these kids or whatever. It's like no, like it's great. She's instantly believable as Ruby Sunday, and she's executing the role of the vessel, the audience vessel, really
Hmm.
well. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, Darcy, but that's really what the
That
companion is.
that is 100% the only role of the companion, is to be that vessel, and the fact that she's being able to, again serve that purpose while being such a character on her own, where you care
Yes.
about her and want to know what her story plays out to be. Because again, the doctor, like all the doctor's companions, well, at first seem like nothing or anything like that, by the end of their journeys they become this incredible hero and have made these massive choices. And I just can't wait to see where Millie's character will go to get there. Like Ruby, from the introduction, she already seems to have something special about her. I'm getting a lot of, again, comparing to other companions, I get a lot of, it's almost like we got Rose from the Ninth Doctor
Hmm.
and Clara from the 11th and 12th Doctors, kind of mix them together, and we get Ruby. And I cannot wait because those are two of my favorite companions for very different reasons. So again, I can't wait to see how she brings, again, she plays that role of our vessel, while again, just the fun she has with the Doctor, like that chemistry is so good. And I'm just so glad that those early reports about her not returning for the next season have turned out to be false, because
Yep.
I want her. I want to see more journeys with these two, because again, their chemistry is just so infectious.
And kind of let me know, Darcy. But is it uncommon for a companion to stick around, or are they normally like they're there for an episode and then they're not really in the season, or
So there are two types of companions, right? There are your consistent recurring companions that are your Rose Tyler, Clara Oswald, and Ruby, where they'll be there for an ongoing storyline throughout these seasons. But there has also been companions that are only there for a special or two,
oh, okay.
or just pop up for smaller arcs. And it again, she's definitely the former, where she will be staying with us, and we'll get to see more of her journey as the main partner to the Doctor.
Because I like what you said there about her. She is the vessel for the audience, but she is very much her own character. She,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the times when you have a character like as grandiose as the Doctor, they seem to overshadow everyone else on screen. But she very much is on equal footing with Churigatwa, and I really like the fact that like she's she you still care about what she wants. She still cares about what she wants. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of
Hmm.
the times for a companion character, it's like whatever the main character wants to do, that's kind of the trajectory we're going. And I still do see a little bit of that. Of course, he does seem like he's got the reins right now, but I like the idea that she's still very much sort of will question him at times and will have her own, at least in the first couple episodes that we saw, her own decisions being made.
And 100%, that is a companion trait through and through. The Doctor really only picks people who will challenge his way of thinking and help him see the world in a new light. And multiple times, these companions go against the Doctor in a moment of courage to be like, "What you're saying is wrong. I don't agree with you." And just how that plays out in their relationship going forward is always well done. And I can't, again, with the fact that we're getting such a confident companion already, you can tell there's going to be some great back and forth where she's getting the Doctor to rethink things, and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, I also wanted to mention two other characters that I really enjoyed. I think they're more featured heavily in the Christmas special, but I did want to mention them, and that is Ruby's adopted mom, Carla, and who's Michelle Greenidge, who plays her, and Angela Winter, who plays Cherry Sunday, which is just I thought Ruby Sunday was great, and then they brought Cherry Sunday into the mix, and she is delightful. She is a curmudgeony kind of old lady, and but at the same time, like she just wants her cuppa, and like she deserves it, and she's got they both characters seem to have so much love and heart, and I do hope that we're gonna get to see more of them. I get that like that's not as likely just based off the fact that they kind of are going on all these adventures. How often in previous iterations of the companion are the characters that are around them brought up again?
You'd be surprised. It happens
Yeah.
at least once during every Doctor's tenure, where a major story arc happens to unfold in the present timeline around the companion's family or friends and stuff like that. Like, again, I'm going to go back to the Ninth Doctor, because she was one of the most consistent with her family continues popping up, and even her mom and her boyfriend end up joining them on an adventure on the TARDIS and stuff like that. So seeing the family get roped into these shenanigans, whether it's for the good or for worse, is definitely on the table for sure with Doctor Who, because while it is a spacefaring adventure through time, is also dealing with how the Doctor is viewed and how the world is opening up in the current timeline, how aliens invading London isn't a strange thing type thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a story that is focused in London and we do see more of the Sundays having to deal with aliens.
I hope so. I hope so. And then we can't say anything really about their character. I know that there's been some hints online. Um, I'm I'm kind of as a longtime Star Wars fan and I understand MCU fan. Like I know that like leak culture and like that stuff is big, but like it seems like it's on another level for people in the UK for Doctor Who. Because I've been seeing
Yeah.
a bunch of stuff that we've already. So be careful on the internet because a lot of the stuff that we got to see is out there.
Unfortunately, because Doctor Who is such a massive staple in pop culture and specifically in the UK,
Yeah,
it is very hard for them to hide stuff. As soon as they see, these production schedules go up or see people in certain areas, they are easy to put the two and two together. But what I like about Doctor Who is that even with all these leaks, with character reveals or people being in the show, the story that we're taking on while with these characters is still very much kept under wraps. So, while you might get spoiled as to who or where we're going, but what we're doing while we go there is still going to be a surprise.
but I want to mention probably my one of my favorite surprises from this season was Jinx Monsoon. If you're a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race or just drag in general, you've heard the name Jinx Monsoon before, and Jinx is playing a character that somehow is just as, if not more, larger than life than even Jinx Monsoon themselves. And
Yeah,
I
it's
oh
again, that's something Doctor Who does well. Is there whenever they cast these characters or these actors, they give them so much to work with. And the biggest example that comes to mind, obviously, is from The Giggle, where we had Neil Patrick Harris step in as the villain in that story, and just the same thing is where they craft these characters so well to the actors that the actors have nothing but to do but hit it out of the park, and that's exactly what we get from her performance. So
dude.
I'm really looking forward to seeing fans, get introduced to Jinx's character.
Legitimately frightening and entertaining at the same
You
time.
can't look away. You can't look away, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you're horrified. And to me, that is
Ugh.
Doctor Who because a lot of the time, the cutest enemy will be the scariest.
Yeah. Deliciously devious is what I would describe Jinx's character. I wanted to take a moment before we kind of talk about some other stuff. I wanted to jump on the visuals. For me, we recently reviewed Netflix's Dead Boy Detectives, and I mentioned in that review how the visuals took me out of the moment. And then, I think there were a lot of moments in that show where you could really sense that the artistic design or the artistic efforts were hurt by the show's budget. And you had mentioned how that didn't really affect you as much because you've grown accustomed to the campy, sometimes goofy visuals of Doctor Who. So
Hmm.
going into this, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, knowing that maybe this season they've got a bigger budget working
They
with
got the Disney
Disney,
money behind them. Yeah.
right? And so I have to say, while they were still definitely campy at times, I think at least in the 3 episodes that we watched, the Christmas special and the first two, I'm pretty sure I only winced once at them, which I think is I want to believe is a step above previous seasons of the show. Would you agree?
It is again. This previous season of the show did a really good job of mixing, practical and CG effects, and a lot of it came down to the fact that Doctor Who is always very gritty and dark and very dimly lit, so they were able to get away with it. And at least the transition to Disney with the specials that we got leading up to this, and these 3 episodes, it really seems like while the campiness and all that stuff might still be jarring, the fact that they're turning everything up in brightness, you can see so much
Mm-hmm.
better. The detail is so much clearer. I think that's where it's a standout. Was where before they were hiding stuff in the shadows. Now they're putting everything in the light, and like you said, only one of the moments really was jarringly noticeable. And I feel like that's a testament to how Doctor Who works with practical effects and knows how to tell a story. And it's not so much always show what's going on. Maybe you just need to hear it in the background or see it on a screen type thing. They're very clever in the way that they hide some of those bigger set pieces almost.
Yeah, and speaking of set pieces, I do appreciate the sets. Again, I think there's a good amount of green screen being used in some of these moments, but
Hmm.
it's not it's not too like it's not shocking, it's not glaring. And then I think there's also a great amount of actual on location shoots that they're doing as well, which
Hmm.
I appreciate.
Again, that's something Doctor Who's also done is they shoot all over the UK because the UK does surprisingly have a very diverse topographical landscape. They're able to bounce around in the UK and Europe and stuff like that, and really travel to other planets because they're doing all those on-set locations. And I think to me, the biggest on-set location for a Doctor Who episode is always the TARDIS. And this season's like the Chudi's TARDIS with
I
the
was gonna say.
walkways, the vastness of it. It is probably one of my favorite console rooms that we've got to date, and it just again, it's so barren, but at the same time has so much character. And the TARDIS is a character on the show, and I can feel like already we're going to get some great back and forth almost between the Doctor and the TARDIS in this season.
Well, and I think this is. I saw an interview with Chudy Gatwa where he said, somebody asked, "Is this how long do you think this is going for?" And he just simply said, like, "You're not getting rid of me too quickly." So I think there's room to grow, and I think the idea of having sort of an empty at first TARDIS, but maybe it fills up as they go along on their adventure.
I can see
Um,
him to like almost use it like a scrapbook where
yeah,
we start off with just the jukebox, but as we go through the story, more little things to remind us of previous adventures will pop up.
I like that. I like that.
Hmm.
Speaking of the story, I think the story and the way at least that they're keeping it so far is true to the monster of the week motif, and I think it's working for me. We talked again. I'm going to bring up Dead Boy Detectives just because it's on the brain
Hmm.
as one of our more recent reviews, and that one, we talked about the fact that like they didn't know whether they wanted to do Monster of the Week or not, and at least for these few episodes that we've been watching, it feels like that is absolutely the motif they're going for. I'm going to assume that that's what it is. That's what Doctor Who is.
Again,
Um,
for the most part,
yeah,
Doctor Who is a very monster of the week, but they have those overarching season storylines that kind of tie everything together, but aren't necessarily right in your face.
yeah.
So this series seems to be continuing that trend as well, which I'm looking forward to because again, Doctor Who always did a good job with those self-contained stories where you introduce an enemy and you're done with the enemy by the end of the episode, and it's nice to not have to go back to that.
Well, and I think the other aspect to that, because normally with sci-fi, that I kind of I don't know how to feel about that, but and I'm going to preface this with, what I'm about to say might be the most obvious thing to like Whovians, to like longtime Doctor Who fans. But I have to say, it is quite, and this is probably something you're like in your head, Darcy. You're like, I've been telling you this forever, but it's quite refreshing to jump into the genre of sci fi and go on adventures with characters and a world that doesn't seem to take itself too seriously, in the sense of like, and I'm not saying like you can't get serious, nerdy, geeky stuff with this stuff. I've again, as I was looking up references for things, there's a lot, but I don't feel like it's ever to a point where, in the Christmas special, for instance, there's a flying ship, right? And there's goblins involved or whatever, right? And it's like, if you were to take that or take something like, I believe the titles for these episodes have already been released, but that one of the episodes is called Space Babies. I'm just going to say that. And if you take those things, Darcy, and you put them in something like Star Wars or even the goofiest parts of Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone would be like, no, that's too much. Like, the Marvels, like with the cats, like floating and they're trying to
Yeah.
catch the cats. And it's like, oh, that's too silly. And it's like, I didn't think it was too silly for the Marvels, but this stuff that we're getting in this series, at least in these few episodes, absolutely people would be so upset to see them in the MCU or in Star Wars. But here, there's such a lightheartedness that goes such a long way into charming you into just being okay with it, that I found myself like kind of just forgiving the cheesiness and goofiness and being like, let's just go along. Let's see what
Yep.
happens.
And to me, that's Doctor Who. That means they're telling the stories properly because Doctor Who again, they go to those funny parts and they don't take themselves seriously, but they also go to those dark parts and
Hmm.
where you're getting epic sci-fi story and you're just like, yeah, they're really getting existential with some of these storylines and stuff. But again, that's the magic of Doctor Who is the fact that the universe is so vast that you're going to come across those parts that are super dark, but you're also going to come across these parts that are silly and quirky and zany that don't make any sense. But because again, you're already painted the picture of this universe being massive,
Hmm.
untold. Times will be different. Things happen everywhere. We don't understand what can go on. That leaves it open where again, you're more willing to accept these silly, goofy stories because you know that maybe it's not for you. You're going to get a serious one later on, but at the same time, they're taking the time to explore an idea and flesh it out. And it's just that's to me, that's what Doctor Who is great about these ideas. They pitch them, we explore them for a bit, and we move on to the next one. And it's just like that's to me, that's all we need is these fresh ideas, new stories, fun worlds. It's just yeah, Doctor Who is all about the whimsicality of it all. I think.
Well, and I like that the talking about the humor of the show. I don't think at any point I was like laughing on the floor, like laughing out loud, but there's some great wordplay, some really great stuff in the dialogue,
Hmm.
very fanciful, and you kind of like you get the giggles when Ruby and the Doctor are like excited about dressing up for an adventure or kind of go the idea of going anywhere. You can kind of like sort of just giggle along with them, and I think my favorite aspect in the humor, at least from these few episodes that we've seen, is the fact that sometimes like mind-blowing, like crazy things will happen, altering something in the timeline or something like that, and it's not the episode, it's not the whole episode that's dealing with it. It's like a one-off joke that deals with it in the moment, and then it's just gone. And the
Hmm.
way that they're able to do that, I'm hoping that we get more of those sort of elements of comedy where it's just like in any other sci-fi series they do like a whole season on it, but in here it's just a joke. I kind of really appreciated it.
So it's funny you say that because again, in one of the more recent specials that saw David Tennant as the 14th Doctor with Donna Noble, there's a throwaway joke where they visit Isaac Newton, and she's like, "Oh no, I gotta say to him, I gotta say, if anyone, he'll understand this joke." She's like, "You just don't understand the gravity of the
Oh
situation,"
no.
and at that point, Isaac Newton had to come up with gravity at all. So then he ends up, he's like, "Oh, that's a great word. What was that word? I got to write it down." And he writes it down as mavity. And so
Yeah.
from now on in the Doctor Who universe, it's not gravity, it's just mavity.
Mavity.
And that's so they again in these first 3 episodes, the Doctor has already slipped mavity into it. Like he doesn't even know that he's saying the wrong thing.
That's
So that's just again,
incredible.
that's the type of humor that Doctor Who manages to work with, where they'll just something in the background, a news story in one episode will be like, "Hey, that's calling back to something 3 seasons ago," and
Yeah.
we're still seeing these little ramifications kind of playing out in this vast universe, and it's so cool. That's so big and so small at the same time.
Well, speaking of Mavity, I think, as someone who is involved in a lot of fandoms, I mentioned Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, MCU, you name it. I can absolutely tell that there are so many moments and phrases and callbacks that are just going right over my head in these episodes. There's moments where we won't say who they are, but there's like a specific character in each episode where just the camera centers on them and takes a little bit too long on them, and I'm like, they must be important. Or there's a moment where Doctor Who references, he talks about it, one of his past adventures. I'm like, absolutely, that was an episode. There's no way that
Hmm.
was not an episode. And so there's some stuff that I went in and I looked up some names and things like that, and I'm like, okay, that I could see how that would be so cool for Whovians. Did you experience any of those moments in these couple episodes?
100%. Again, we're over 60 years of Doctor Who storytelling through the TV, the books, the comics, everything like that. So again, like, there's so many stories to reference, and like you said, they're just the Doctor talking in an episode where you're not expecting to get any deep cuts. So just again, one of those throwaway lines, you'll be like, "Oh, he's talking about the seventh Doctor right now," or "Oh, that's when he was the fourth Doctor." And
Wow.
at one point, he even mentioned he's like, "I'm living right over there right now. I'm stuck in a junkyard." It's just like this
Hmm.
like, these are all things that
Whatever that
actually
means. Yeah.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, it's so great. I love
Yeah.
it.
Okay, cool. I mean, I think despite that fact that I'm a lot of stuff's going over my head, it does kind of make me want to maybe go back and check out some of the essential episodes, at least for this story. And maybe I don't know whether to do that before this season's done or after to kind of pick them out better. But I know that I need to at least go back to the introduction of this Doctor, because you said Neil Patrick Harris is in it.
Yes, so in the final David Tennant episode, The Giggle,
Okay.
that's where we got Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker, and it's such a good Doctor Who story, and just the way that they introduce this new generation or new iteration, sorry, of the Doctor is again we're so used to it. This is the 15th time we're seeing a Doctor regenerate, but still they managed to change things up enough to be like, okay, I'm on board again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got one more question for you, Darcy, and then we're going to sign off with our kind of our final thoughts on
Yeah. Oh yeah.
these
Shoot,
episodes.
please.
And I also obviously I want to know if you're going to continue to tune in, which that's probably an obvious question. But what of the I guess minus the Christmas episode, what are of the episodes that we got to watch are you most excited for fans to get to see?
Again, so these we talked about how Doctor deals with the light and the dark. The first part of this season is definitely leaning more towards the lighter side, where they are the more campy or silly stories. That being said, that the second episode, I can't remember the name of it right now. It's not Space Babies.
The one after that,
The one
sure.
after that, the
Yeah,
third episode in this storyline, though, that's where we get one of those larger than life villains
yeah.
that just eats up every scene they're on
Almost
screen. So
literally eating it
yeah.
up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That second episode yeah, third episode, whatever you want to call it. That's the one I think people will really enjoy getting to know the Doctor with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that episode had a really cool callback back that I had to look up, but there's a specific line or a specific sort of conversation between the Doctor and Ruby that I was like, oh, that means something big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's going to make diehard fans very happy. I'm going to choose that episode as well, just because. And again, I think Jinx Monsoon is just so excellent in it. The episode, even aside from that, is wild. There's such a fun concept with it, and I think one of the other things, and again, this might be old hat for Whovians, but I liked like kind of learning alongside where like the first episode is dealing with maybe a storyline that doesn't really make as much sense from a it might within that world but not within our world, whereas
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the episode with Jinx Monsoon really does kind of feature some of our real world history, and it's just kind of fun to sort of learn things alongside that maybe I didn't know before about certain things within the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of neat. Is that something that that Doctor Who is kind of known for as well?
Again, Doctor Who exploring alternate timelines or just exploring how events through a different lens where it still has the same outcome, but in the Doctor's universe, the Doctor is the reason why I got there.
Hmm.
It's really cool, and again, like that second episode being set in our past allows us to go on one of those journeys where something has changed and we know it, but everyone in the world doesn't, and just seeing how the Doctor tries to solve that problem. And it's always those are always my favorite stories where it very much grounded in our reality, where it isn't on some other planet, some other species we don't care about. These are, humans in our past, and they have to deal with something that we never knew existed, type thing. So it's always a fun time.
Cool, cool. Well, Darcy, it sounds like you're going to keep watching. If you want to give us your final thoughts on these episodes that we got to see.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to keep watching. Again, I mentioned how there's always an overarching story in these seasons, at least, and what they're setting up with the Doctor and Ruby and their adventures going forward. While these episodes maybe aren't my favorite style of Doctor Who, the lighter ones are never at the top of my list. I do enjoy them. I can tell the potential for storytelling with these characters is definitely heading somewhere that I cannot wait to see. Russell T Davies returning to the show. He's written some of my favorite storylines, and in the fact that he is running this, I can only see this season overall being very satisfying with a start to finish kind of mentality and going forward. So yeah, I'll be tuning in. Again, I got the Doctor's name tattooed on my body, so I kind of feel like I have to at this point. But there's a good reason. Millie Gibson and Judy Gatwa are so infectious that I can't wait to see what journeys they go on next.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to keep watching it for sure. I think we're going to be getting very busy with a bunch of stuff coming soon to the podcast, but I'm certainly going to make it part of my weekly watch once the public releases catch up. And I think,
Hmm.
again, the show is so refreshing for fans of sci-fi who've maybe if you've not delved into Doctor Who before, hopefully you'll find the same thing. I think Trudy Gatwa and Millie Gibson they're electric together, and it's going to be, as you said, it's going to be great to see them grow and to get to sort of learn more about these characters and this world and its history alongside Ruby. And I think if you've never seen Doctor Who and you're just be open to having a fun time in the genre of
Hmm.
sci-fi. I think almost approach it like the closest comparison I can give is like some of the goofiest, campiest stuff you've seen in like vintage Star Trek. but obviously a better production value and characters that are willing to go to places that still will get you invested, that will still get you to a place where you'll see the more dramatic side of things. And I'm not saying, don't Star Trek fans don't come after me, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like if you're okay with the goofy campy sci-fi and watching a show that doesn't take itself too seriously, I think it's for you. And then of course if you are a diehard Whovian, then no matter what I say, you're still going to watch this no matter what. So, but that is it for this review, or I guess these impressions of the first two episodes of Doctor Who. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on this series or any of the shows or movies we cover, well, you don't need to jump into the TARDIS and transport yourself to an unknown moment in time. Instead, Darcy, can you let the Whovians know how they can reach us?
Of course, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or if that's too much like going down an unexplored timeline and, ending up where humanity never evolved and we're all reptiles,
Oh, goodness.
you can reach us on Twitter at geekcentricyt or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric.
Are you saying we came from reptiles, Darcy? Is that what happened?
In one timeline we might have.
Whoa. Well, keep in mind, reptiles, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler free reviews for Star Wars Tales of the Empire, The Fall Guy, Netflix's Dead Boy Detectives, Prime Video's Fallout, Alex Garland's Civil War, Monkey Man, Three Body Problem, and X-Men 97. We've also just wrapped our 21st Watch Club for Star Wars, for the final season of Star Wars The Bad Batch, with our next Watch Club starting up in just about a month for the next Star Wars series, The Acolyte. Be sure to join our Discord using the link in our description if you want to chime in and share your thoughts on this new season of Doctor Who or The Acolyte when that comes out, or anything else that we're covering on the podcast. We've also got some great interviews out now. One of our more recent interviews with Simon Kinberg, the executive producer of the Apple original series Sugar. Justin sat down with him to talk about the film noir genre and how this show gives it something fresh. But also, as a self-proclaimed geek, Simon mentioned something about kind of what he would love to see with the X-Men, which is pretty cool. So check out that interview and all of our interviews here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, and you just might be because you're listening to this, we have something really special coming soon to the Geekcentric podcast, but you're not going to be getting all timey-wimey with us. You'll have to wait to find out what exactly is going on. So subscribe, leave a review. It helps us so much. We've got a ton of great stuff coming at you this month and all of 2024. So join us as we cover all things Geekcentric. Darcy, I'd like to thank Who so much for joining me for this double-hearted, spoiler-free review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
I just learned that he had two hearts. I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.